welcome to our channel, Out of the Dark. This is a platform where we focus on stories of struggle and healing from narcissistic abuse in all its many forms. We hope to share these stories with you for the purpose of helping others who may be, have been, or are considering, perhaps unknowingly, entering such destructive relationships and to promote a better and healthier and more life-affirming existence. Now let's get into the story. This story was sent in from Jillian. Jillian writes, "Thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing your knowledge. A friend kindly forwarded this clip onto me a few minutes ago, and the timing couldn't be better. My mother is staying locally for a month, and I am so scared of the pain she is going to cause me. I feel anxious worrying in advance what I'm going to get told off for. It's already happened. I didn't call her for 3 days, and then she called me to say she had arrived safely, but her opening tone and comments to me are those of attack. I have been a bad girl for not having called her over the past few days. I happen to have a cold and feel relieved that she will then let me off the hook and I don't have to justify my behavior for not calling her. I have done nothing wrong, but this is normal. She continually tells me off for doing nothing wrong. I am 53 and she is 74. I am single, have 2 lovely grown-up sons and a grandson. She has never been on her own, with my father for 30 years and her new husband for 28. Her current husband is her supporter, equally scared, I believe, that he has to obey her every instruction or he will be discarded and replaced. My mother definitely withholds her blessing. She will never offer encouragement and suggests I do work below me. I feel that I have to tell her about every part of my life and cannot withhold any information. My whole life is about serving her, making her happy. I feel like I have no identity. I was diagnosed with bipolar in 2009, but I now think I may not have it, and it's simply been the fact that I have been groomed since I was a little girl, not having the right to have an opinion, not allowed to answer her back. I am not allowed to be pretty or steal any attention from her. I feel like I have no identity." So Jillian, I'm going to add a few things before Jason hops on and responds to some of the stuff that you're going through. I am so very sorry to hear about your mother. This sounds truly horrible, and I can feel your anxiety in your writing. The hole that you're talking about makes me think of trauma bonds. She's your mom, and of course you want her to approve of you. Every daughter wants this desperately from her parents. I don't know if this will help, but the reason I stuck around with my covert narc ex and around my parents is due to a few things. I thought I was the problem. I was convinced something was wrong with me that made them treat me the way they did. Another thing is my self-esteem and self-worth, or self-love, was so incredibly low. I was never taught to love who I was. I was taught to question myself all of the time, and this is strategic by them. It makes you rely on them for everything, including your self-esteem. I also felt like my love for them would change them, and I didn't know this consciously. It was sort of a subconscious thing. I saw their potential, and this was mainly with my ex. And because I thought I was the problem, my loyalty to them made me continue to try and love them harder, to prove to them my love, but the goalposts kept moving out of reach. I was under the assumption that they could change, that I could change them. I've come to realize that narcissists never change. Not only that, but they know exactly what they are doing. And I'm not sure if you've gotten to that place yet with your mom where you've realized that she knows exactly how she's treating you. We make excuses for them, reasons for them as to why they treat us this way, why they yell, why they insult us. We say things to ourselves like they had a bad childhood, or they've had a really hard day, they didn't mean what they said. Sometimes we'll even gaslight ourselves and say, I in your mind, or even out loud, I took it the wrong way. The fact is, we've had a bad childhood and we choose to love people. We choose to forgive each other. Over and over, we choose to forgive them. It is a choice to treat people so badly. And they switch on their kind and loving act for strangers at the drop of a hat. That means they decided to. They chose to. So they choose to treat us like crap. I had to set boundaries. I don't know how much research you've done in boundaries if you've read any books or did any research on YouTube, but boundaries are narcissist repellent. If you set a boundary, like for an example, I will not tolerate being talked to like that. If you do it again, I'm leaving. If you get to the point where you can do that, you have to stick to it. There has to be consequences to their actions. And if you set a boundary and you stick to it for a little bit and then you give in, which some of us have done that, it just reinforces them into thinking that they can blow past them. I know it's hard with parents. You want to respect them, you want to honor them, but here's the thing. You're an adult now. You're no longer a child. You deserve to be treated with respect just as they demand respect. I know they are our parents, but just because they are our parents does not absolve them from treating us like crap. For me, parent or no parent, I will not let anyone treat me like this anymore, and I hope you are at that point or maybe close to that point. That's where we have to all try to get to. To get to this point, you have to learn to love yourself. You have to love yourself enough to stick up for yourself, set boundaries, and stick to them, even if it means walking away from your mom. I completely understand if you aren't ready for this, if you're not at that point. It is incredibly hard and painful, but to give you some hope, although it's hard, the peace and the joy I feel personally in my body, down to my bones, is real, and it's amazing. And I've heard a lot of stories from other narcissist abuse survivors that have felt the same way. It's this dichotomy of feeling amazing, having this weight lifted off of you. But at the same time, it's difficult because they're your family, and you've been told your entire life that, family's blood is thicker than water, and, family never lets you down. The thing of it is that we've been being let down by our family or parents or a sibling our entire lives. So it gets really drilled into us, and it's hard to let go, even of something that's incredibly hurtful. I've had to write out everything that has been said or done to me by my parents up until this point. The questions, the comments, the snide remarks, the things that they've done. They have never supported or encouraged me, and I deserve better, and so do you. So I'm going to end right there. Jason's going to pop on and give you some advice, but we so appreciate you writing in and sharing a part of your story. Feel free to write again if there's any other things that you want to share with us or to share with other people that's going to help them in their own struggles with this kind of abuse. And we really appreciate you and speaking up and sharing your story. I don't know if you feel this way already since you emailed us, but it is very freeing to speak up and just tell someone, just one person, what you've been through, especially someone who's been through it because they believe you. It's very, very difficult, I think, to share with certain people, especially if they know your parents and they know the side of them, that facade that they present to other people. It's very hard for them to see this person that you're describing. So we just hope that this recording helps you a little bit. If you have any other questions, please email us, and Jason's on in just a sec.
Okay, well, there we go. We're trying a new thing. We've talked about it a little bit, and we've decided that what we would like to do is have both of us say a few things after the email that anyone sends in has been read. And rather than going back over it point by point, what we're going to do, just pick out a few highlights. I might read a sentence or two just to give context to what we're going to comment on, and then go from there. How do you feel about that, Jen?
That sounds great.
Okay, let's give it a shot. So first of all, thank you, Jillian, for sending your email in. This is what we're trying to do, is to lovingly coax folks into being willing to share their story, and that is so that we have something to respond to. In the past, what we've done is we've read the email that was sent in its entirety, and then I have been reading it word for word and responding piece by piece. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It just, we feel a couple things. We feel like it might make the videos too long. In the world we live in, people seem more interested in shorter videos, and so we're going to try to do that. The other thing is that Jen does her part, and then I do my part, and we're not doing it together. We'd like to do things together and see how that goes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the first part I want to comment on, Jillian says that a friend kindly forwarded this clip onto her a few minutes ago and the timing couldn't be better. First of all, thank your friend for sending you the video. We love that. I think the biggest promotion that anybody can give is word of mouth, and to us that seems like word of mouth advertising, sort of. Getting it out to someone that might need it. So everybody do that. Send the video. If you like the video and you think it might help someone, please send it on to someone, just like a close friend did that for Jillian. Okay, so here's the big part. Jillian says her mother is staying locally for a month. She shares that she's scared of the pain that her mother is going to cause her. She then says, I feel anxious worrying in advance what I'm going to get told off for. First of all, I understand how anxious a person can feel when this person, I'm assuming she guilts and shames you based on what you wrote. And anytime anyone, especially our mother or family member, guilts and shames us, we don't really look forward to their visit.
No, not at all.
No.
And the anxiety builds the closer the time gets to their arrival.
Right. And it doesn't make the visit fun. So I certainly understand why you would have anxiety. The other thing is, you say worrying in advance. We can get all wrapped up and our stomach in knots in expectation of this abuse that's going to be hurled in our direction. I mean, I know how that feels. When I've been around narcissists, especially in my family, I have felt that, and I have worried about, are they going to say something? Am I going to react? Especially with other people around. It's not a good situation to be in, so we certainly understand.
And Jillian and listeners, I don't know if you guys have been through this, but a lot of times when you get stirred up like that with anxiety, there are times that they seem nice to you, and it catches you off guard because you're so used to being guilted and shamed or questioned or undermined or offhanded comments or backhanded compliments. And so that's kind of a really rough thing to deal with, because when that happens, you end up kind of putting your guard down because you're like, oh, they're being nice. But then in the drop of a hat, they sling, an insult or a comment that it's almost like the pain that's caused through it happening when you're unaware of the pain of not being prepared for it to happen is even worse. And then you get mad at yourself for not girding your loins, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's a tactic too. It's something that they do. They want to throw you off course and be nice so that they see you relax a little bit. I think they're very good at reading body language. And so they see you relax, and then they hurl some kind of insult or comment or backhanded compliment, and it hurts you even more. Because I feel like a lot of us, we go into these situations where we're stealing ourselves and trying to be prepared at any moment for it to come. And you feel more confident in that. I mean, I know the anxiety is kind of twisting in your stomach, but you feel a little bit safe because it's happened so many times that you're like, okay, I'm going to be ready this time.
Yeah.
Because we have all had those moments where something awful was said and then the person leaves and we spend hours upon hours thinking about, I should have said this and I should have done that. And it's torture. It's torture.
We all do that. I mean, I'm sure everyone listening knows what we're talking about, how you replay the incident in your mind and just like Jen said, you think, I should have said this, I should have said that. That can cause anxiety too. Definitely understand that. Okay, continuing. Jillian says, I didn't call her for 3 days, and then she called me to say she had arrived safely, but her opening tone and comments to me are those of attack. Well, just first of all, she calls and says that she's arrived safely. If you didn't call her, there's some implied shame and guilt in that. Well, I've arrived safely. That's the way I see it. Maybe that's not the way it happened, but...
And I think sometimes something can be said benignly, but because you know this person and you know their tactics to a degree, you know what the meaning is behind it.
Right.
And that's something else that happens with narcissists, because especially if there's an audience, like there's other people around, they can say it nicely. So to everyone around you, they're like, oh, wow, her mom's letting her know she arrived safely.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what it means
Yeah.
behind the curtain.
Yeah, so apparently she didn't say anything overtly. She didn't say, well, why didn't you call me? But it's implied. It's implied. You say her tone felt like an attack. Yeah, I don't have any problem understanding the way that part of the conversation went.
And I was going to add the next part in your email. You said, she continually tells me off for doing nothing wrong. This is a horrible, horrible place to be. Because if you're getting yelled at for something that wasn't wrong, or something that you didn't do that in your mind was wrong, that even more solidifies the fact that you can't do anything right. Like you could breathe the wrong way, or say hi the wrong way, or put a dish away the wrong way.
Right.
You just never know what is going to set this person off.
Right. Plus, you're 53, Jillian. So when does this end? When do they ever stop telling us off or dictating to us things we've done wrong?
Or how things should be done. And Jillian, you didn't mention this in your email, but when you're 53, I don't know about you, but it took me a really long time to feel like an adult in my body because of the way I have been treated and talked to. And so it's such a dehumanizing, even humiliating thing to be an adult to know that you're an adult, but to feel like a child when you're being talked to by someone that has this kind of personality disorder.
Wow. Good stuff. Okay, so we're going to skip forward a little bit. So Jillian says her current husband is her supporter, talking about her mother.
Enabler?
Yes.
Yeah.
Her current husband is her supporter. We would call it an enabler, but supporter's a good word. If they are an enabler, they're not going to stand up for anyone else. They're going to go along with whatever she says and does. They're afraid of the narcissist too.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
I could say positively, I'm sure at home when it's just the two of them behind closed doors, that he is also being called out on all kinds of things that he hasn't done wrong, but he's being told that it's wrong. Usually, if you're married to one, you're trying to stay in their good graces, and it doesn't mean it's okay to be an enabler, but they're trying to stay, they're also in a game. They're playing the same game you are, where you're trying to prove to this person that you love them and that you support them and you're there for them. It just becomes ridiculous.
Yeah, and the thing is, we've seen this a lot of times where if they're not focused on someone else, the enabler that lives with them, they get all the focus. The narcissist needs to get supply from somewhere. So if they're alone with the narcissist and the person that they get their supply from is not available, this is probably one of the reasons why she was upset that you hadn't called her. You hadn't been in communication with her for a while. So I just want to say one more thing about the current husband. You say in your email that her husband is equally scared, believe that he has to obey her every instruction or he will be discarded and replaced. So you do know something about the discard that the narcissist does.
Fear of it.
The fear of the discard.
And they hang that over your head to get you to stay in line. And so your stepdad is probably dancing that dance with her.
Right.
That's a shame.
Okay, the other thing that's important for us to mention is you say in the email, my mother definitely withholds her blessing. She never offers encouragement and suggests I do work below me. This was the video that your friend sent you withholding the blessing that we just posted over the weekend. So I don't feel like we need to go over all of that again, but just to say thank you for sharing this with us, because this is what they do. If they withheld the blessing from us our whole lives, they're not going to just suddenly give it to us. We're never going to get the blessing from them. Never.
And that's a hard pill to swallow because you want it from your parents. You really, really do. And I think it's innately rooted in us to want that and to wait for it.
Right. I have shared with Jen, my main narcissist, I very much desire to get the blessing from him. I just had to come to the place just knowing that I'm not ever going to get it. So as we laid out in the video, I'm having to get the blessing from other people. We shared that we can get the blessing from God. We can get it from people that love us and know us and support us. And that actually works. You also want to learn how to give yourself the blessing. And you do that by working on your self-esteem, by positive self-talk. And over time, it changes. I think that there's a part of us that's ingrained to desire that blessing, especially from our parent. It is something we can change and we can work on.
And one thing I want to add, Jillian, and anybody that's listening, you really, really have to grieve. When you come to the realization that you're not going to get it and you just have to swallow that pill, you have to come to radical acceptance. And there's some great videos on YouTube. If you type radical acceptance, you have to give yourself time to grieve the fact that you're not going to get it. And it's painful and it's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow. But for me, I had to just really let it sink in. This is not going to happen. It hasn't happened thus far. It's never going to happen. And just have a couple of moments of having a very, very good cry and just recognize that grief, there's no formula for grief. So no. I've had multiple moments where I've had a great cry in Jason's arms, and I'll be good for a while, and then I'll just have a day where that sadness comes up, and sometimes anger, just because it's so hard to wrap our minds around that a parent wouldn't give the blessing to their child. It's so strange and foreign. It just doesn't fit our own hearts and our own minds of how we think of things. And you having 2 sons and a grandson, I bet you can understand that more than I do, more than we do, because we don't have kids.
Right.
But you have to give yourself time to grieve it and just know that it's not a one and done thing. It's going to come up a couple of times. It does absolutely suck, but you need to allow yourself to grieve it. And every time that I have cried and grieved, it has gotten a little bit better. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that's a good add. Thank you, Jen. Okay, the next part, Jillian shares with us that her whole life is about serving her mother, making her mother happy. And then she says, I feel like I have no identity. Let's focus on that just very briefly. Yeah. Oh, sure.
Okay, are you sure? You can go ahead.
No, go ahead. I won't forget what I was going to say.
Jillian, I was going to say, your identity right now or in the past has been to make your mother happy. It's such a huge crossroad to come to put an end to that. I don't know if Jason has some suggestions that he wants to say, but it makes complete sense that you don't feel like you have an identity because your mind and your thoughts are constantly focused on this person that you're trying to keep happy, that you're trying to get the blessing from. So you're not having like a natural ebb and flow dialogue with yourself and making sure you're putting yourself first. And we do believe that there is a healthy place, that a healthy balance you can get to when it's you thinking about yourself and doing what's best for you. You know, up until this point, or maybe the most part of your life, your identity has been wrapped up in trying to appease your mom so she doesn't say anything mean or doesn't do anything mean or doesn't judge you or guilt or shame you. So it makes sense that you don't feel like you have an identity because it's wrapped up in somebody else.
Mm-hmm. I'll just add to that, I agree with what Jennifer said, and to say that up to this point, that has been your identity. Serving her, making her happy, and you don't have to do that anymore. You can, as Jen was saying, you can get to the point where you're doing things that are right for you, where you build your identity, you build your self-esteem, and you disconnect from your mother. I think Jen said when she was reading her letter after she read your email initially, it's a hard pill to swallow. It's difficult. We're not trying to tell anyone that this stuff is easy. It isn't easy, and depending on how old you are and how long you've been living like this, it can take a while. There can be some changes right away once you start realizing that this is the situation. Okay, Jillian says, I was diagnosed with bipolar in 2009, but I now think I may not have it. And it's simply been the fact I have been groomed since I was a little girl, not having the right to have an opinion, not allowed to answer her back. I'm not allowed to be pretty or steal any attention from her. Again, Jillian says at the end, I feel I have no identity. Okay, a couple of things here. First of all, we are not medical professionals. This channel is mainly to help people with emotions and feelings and working on self-esteem, telling stories of narcissistic abuse, and tips on how to manage your life in those ways. So in saying that someone doesn't have bipolar or diagnosing someone, we stay away from that. Okay, so there's our disclaimer before what I'm about to say. Jillian, I'm not saying you're not bipolar. This is what you're saying. You say, but now I think I may not have it. These narcissists, and I get pretty passionate about this, these narcissists can make you feel crazy. They can make you have some of the same symptoms that people diagnosed with some of these other disorders can have. I mean, people go to psychiatrists and psychologists. If you go to a psychiatrist, sometimes they will give you meds. They'll handle it with meds. Of course, I hope that psychiatrists aren't just giving out meds. They're also putting some counseling in there. I think that is the way that they still do it. But if you're thinking that you don't have bipolar, this is something you can work on. Again, as you disconnect from the narcissist and build up your love of self, your personality, and familiarize yourself with all the tactics and any information that's out there, and there is a lot of information out there for you, it will become easier to know what is a false diagnosis, and it's easier to determine what's real and what's not real. You're not crazy, though. There's nothing wrong with you. It is the narcissist and the way that you've been treated since you were born.
And programmed.
And you can break out of that. You don't have to live like that anymore. You say, I have been groomed since I was a little girl. Yes, we're groomed. We're groomed to be their supply. And I just want you to know that can be over. That can be over now.
And I'll add, Jillian, I, for a long time, thought I had ADHD, and I did actually get tested by a psychiatrist, and I did pass with flying colors. But I have to say, as soon as I left my ex, all the symptoms went away. It was due to living in excruciating 24/7 anxiety, so that even when things weren't happening, even when I wasn't getting screamed at or watching him punch the crap out of something or road rage, I was always waiting for it. We were never built as humans to live in that state of fight or flight. We weren't built to stay in a state of survival, whether it's, flight, freeze, fight, fawn. Our bodies weren't built to do that. So it can affect you in all kinds of ways, neurologically, I believe, and emotionally. And when you don't feel like you have the freedom to speak up for yourself or to say no or to share your feelings, you're constantly not only are you stuffing your feelings, you're invalidating yourself and you're not being autonomous. You're not having agency. So I don't know if you have felt this way, Jillian, but when you're saying yes to your mom, inside you're screaming no because you don't want to do what she wants you to do. Yeah. So you're going against your own compass. You're going against your own thoughts, your own desires, your own choices to appease her. And that's a horrible, hellish place to live in 24/7. I'm not sure how close she lives to you. I know she's visiting for a month, but having someone that you have phone calls with, I don't know if she wants you to call her regularly a week, but to have that on your plate and knowing that she wants a phone call on a regular basis, which, some people have those kinds of parents, it's just always there in the back of your mind, keeping up rent-free space in your head. And because of the anatomy of this personality disorder and what it does to the victims, you are just constantly with your thoughts focused on them. And with our last video that we talked about with the hanging sentence, there were some things that we mentioned that even without the hanging sentence, the narcissist is still trying to get you in that place, and they have multiple tactics to get you there, to groom you, to program you to be the kind of person they need, the kind of slave or emotional punching bag. The hanging sentence is just one tactic of how they get you there. There are so many different tactics as to how they program you, and part of the programming is keeping you in a state of anxiety in many different ways, the things that she says and does, so that when she comes around or makes a phone call or has a visit, you just feel like a mess inside. And that's what they want. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so the last part here, and then I'm going to give you some tips to do or to try for the next month, and then we'll be done. Jillian says, I'm not allowed to be pretty or steal any attention from her. Now, we know all about this. This is competition, and narcissists do it all the time, especially mothers with daughters, fathers with sons. They're in competition with each other. And of course, they don't want you to be pretty. They don't want you to be any better than they are. They want to make you feel lesser than. That makes them feel superior. And that makes them get more supply from you when they say, well, I'm prettier than you. If someone were to compliment you and say how pretty you are, Jillian, if they're around and they hear that, that takes away from their supply. That makes them feel lesser than, especially if they're older than you. It's competition.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I'm pretty sure Jason was going to be going here, but if you don't feel like you're in a place where you can go no contact right now, especially with her visiting the area for a month, I would say gray rocking and maybe even yellow rock would be the best thing for you to do, which means just not giving her the reaction. And you may already be in this place. You may not react, but it's just messing you up when you get away from her and you're having to process what was said or what was done. But if you can hold back from responding to her, whether it's hurt or anger or anything, because that's what they want. Now, your mom still might be banking on you being in turmoil after she leaves, and you're replaying the things that happened in your mind. That's a whole other thing to work through, in your own time. But I would say that if we weren't given any specific examples, but say when you mentioned about her, she has to be the pretty one. If you get a compliment, or if she does something like, make some snide comment about a dress you're wearing, like one I've heard a lot is, you're wearing that?
Yeah.
Not from my mom, just from other stories that I've heard and read. But just stick to your guns and say, yeah, I like it on me. And if she says something else, disregarding how pretty it looks on you or how good you look or feel in it, you can say, well, I know you think that, but I like it. And just don't fall for it. Don't let your face go downcast. Just smile at her and, even say, I appreciate your opinion, but I really like the way I look in this and I feel great.
That's a good suggestion. Okay, so we've gotten through the email and we've kind of gone over a few key points of it, the two of us together. So we'll see how this works. If you have any suggestions for us about this, whether we do it together or separately, the way that we have been doing it, please send your suggestions to us, or you can put them in the comment section. For the last thing, what I would like to do is talk a little bit about this month that your mother is visiting, and give you a couple things that you can do to get through the month. And then as we responded to the email, once she's gone, then we can talk about, if you'd like, talk about things to do moving forward. We know that you don't want this to continue anymore, but she's right there. So it's just about getting through the next month while she's visiting. I don't know if you've tried this, but what we would suggest would be what we call is coming to the table. And this is any relationship, not just narcissism. In relationships, if you have an argument or you want to discuss something, you just want to have a conversation, but it's something that's very important. Metaphorically, it could be literally as well. You could have a table that you go sit down at, but it's coming to the table. Invite your mother to the table and lay it all out. Okay, so on the idea of coming to the table, the purpose of this is not for the narcissist. It's for you to get it all out in the open, so that everybody's on the same page about that you're not going to take this treatment anymore. You're basically giving them notice that however it's been up to this point is now over. They're not going to use you for supply anymore. They don't have to understand what supply is. You can agree. This is for you. This is you standing up for you. It isn't about them at all. Jennifer made the point that, you can't come to the table with a narcissist. She's absolutely right in that we can't have any expectation that it's going to work, that they're going to go, oh my goodness, I just didn't understand that you're having this reaction to me. That's not going to happen, likely. This is for you. It is to start the process moving forward of you breaking away from their control, their manipulation, their guilt, and their shame, and to restoring your self-esteem, making it better, uncovering all the things they've done and said to cover you up. And that's what you can do. So that's what coming to the table, the purpose of coming to the table would be. And again, if you can't do it right now, completely understand. This may take some time for you to get to this point, but I just wanted to mention that as an option. I don't know how ready you are. I don't know how new you are to this, all these ideas of realizing that your mother is a narcissist, or what type she is, or any of that. But this is one of the options. But you could start doing this in small ways during her visit. If she starts doing these things, you can try standing up for yourself. Now, you said in the email that you can never say anything back to her, but this is a good opportunity for you to start standing up for yourself. This is the goal. The goal is to start standing up for yourself and not taking her comments to heart. Easier said than done. But during her visit, if she says anything, as much as you can, just smile. And don't let her know that it's affecting you. You can deal with how her comments affect you after she leaves or after you're away from her. In front of her, do not, as much as you can, do not let her comments. Don't show any body language, no responses whatsoever. As much as you can, just smile. Don't give her any supply, or try not to at least. And then after she leaves, then you can
journal.
Journal. Yeah, that brings me back to what Jen was saying earlier about writing all the comments and things down. This is very helpful, journaling. It helps when you have these moments. Now, you may not have these moments, but we've had moments where, because our narcissists also put on this mask and they can act nice, we have the struggles like, am I really seeing this? Is this really real? But when you sit down and write down all the things they've said and done to you, there's no question about who they are. Yeah, who they are as a person. So over this month, journal. Just start getting prepared for when they leave, and you can start transforming your life. And it doesn't have to continue like this. So journaling is another good thing to do.
I don't know if you feel comfortable with this, Jillian, but one thing that's really helped me, and you have to be a little bit slick, and I don't know how you feel about this, but there's been times that I have recorded conversations, like I'll hit record on my phone, even out of the room, and bring it in, because everybody has their phones with them these days.
Yeah.
And just usually if your phone goes to sleep, the recorder will still continue, and you can check that on your own time to make sure that still works.
Yep.
But set it down, face down on the table where you guys are sitting if you're visiting. And to be able to have these conversations recorded, not to necessarily share with anyone or to throw it back in their face. It's mainly for you, for you to be able to look back and listen back over the conversation and the things that were said so you don't feel crazy. You know what's happening. It's obvious. And that can be part of your arsenal of proof as to who this person is.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's all we have for this one.
Oh, and one other thing I was going to ask you, Jillian, is she expecting you guys to hang out every day? Is there a way that you could limit your contact and just make excuses like I have to work? I wasn't sure the frequency of when you're going to see her while she's in town for a month, but I would suggest, even if you know it's going to upset her, her feelings aren't your responsibility, and this is something that I forgot to mention earlier.
Yeah.
You have to come to a realization, even kind of like a mantra that you say in your head. My mom's feelings are not my responsibility. My mom's feelings are not my responsibility. Other people's feelings are not my responsibility. How they react to anything that I do is not my responsibility.
Right.
It's the beginning of detaching from you feeling responsible, because if you feel responsible, it connects you to everything. It totally ties you to your mom in a way that's not healthy.
Right.
And it's not good for you. So, the recording, if you can limit your time that you see her while she's visiting, even if it upsets her, that is going to be the best thing for you to kind of keep your sanity, keep your peace, hold on to it. So I just wasn't sure if you were planning on seeing her every day or multiple times a week. But if you can limit that, that would really, really, really benefit you.
Right. The last thing is that if you have anyone, sounds like you do have at least one supportive friend. So if you can vent to them during this month, vent all you want, vent all you can. If you have a narcissistic support group, then, post in there every day if you need to, because those are generally closed. The narcissist is not going to have any access to that. Also, Jillian, during this month, if you want to email us, we're more than happy to do some correspondence back and forth. If you just have something quick that you don't want us to do a broadcast about, we are open, as I said to you in the email response, we are open to conversation like that. No problem there whatsoever. All right. That's it for this particular email. We appreciate Jillian sending this. And if you have a story of narcissistic abuse and would like to share it with us in order to help others or to get advice, encouragement, or support, please send your stories to our email at outofthedark.crips@gmail.com. Until next time, we hope you are living a healthier and more life-affirming existence. And thank you for watching.